Welcome to the Idaho Real Estate Investor Show, where we bring strategies and knowledge that will help you succeed in Idaho's ever-changing real estate market. I'm Jonna Weber. I'm an Idaho investor, realtor, and entrepreneur. I've been successfully investing for over 2 decades and helping countless others do the same. We'll bring you real stories from successful investors, expert advice, and insights to help you build generational wealth through the power of real estate. Whether you're just getting started or well on your way, let's jump in. Welcome to the Idaho Real Estate Investor Show. I'm Jonna, and I'm here with my friend Kevin Carroll today. Kevin is a very involved member of the Boise community, Boise-Rene community now, and he has such a wealth of experience we're excited to get into. We're going to talk about his experience handling thousands of real estate transactions, both as a real estate agent and then doing fix and flip properties, out-of-state investing, and now most recently, he is very wise in all things insurance as he owns a company called Country Financial and is very versed from a unique perspective of being a real estate investor turned real estate insurance and all kinds of insurance that you offer. And we're going to be learning about all the different ways that investors can really benefit by being fully insured and fully informed about the different kinds of insurance that are available to them, and they can really set people up for adequate protection and really for long-term wealth. I'm so happy to have you here at the Idaho Real Estate Investor Show. Happy to make your acquaintance. This is one of those situations where I've known of your name for years in the Valley. You and I have both been agents and worked during the Great Recession and beyond in this crazy town we had at the time called Boise. That was, I think, the biggest, were we the biggest foreclosure capital of the
Close to Vegas. Yeah.
Close to Vegas? Yeah. It was a really interesting time in real estate, and I remember your name from those days. So tell me a little bit about the beginning.
Yeah, sure.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, how you came to Idaho in the first place, and what your genesis is before you even got into real estate.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, for one. And I grew up in Northeast Ohio, and my come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My great grandfather owned a brass foundry. My grandparents started a ski resort and a campground from scratch. My dad owned businesses. I do. My sister does. My brother does. So we've all kind of came from that the entrepreneurial path, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so then years ago, I left Ohio and traveled the country, and I built a house out of mud and straw in the desert of New Mexico with a buddy. And I was traveling around the country learning to build straw bale homes to code. And I went to a workshop in Bend, Oregon, and bumped into my wife at a mutual friend's house. And we liked each other and hung out together for a few days. And I came back to Boise for a while, and then went back to Taos, and then came back here and moved in with her. And now we have 2 kids. And so it's been a really fun journey.
So what year was that you arrived in Boise?
I think 2006, when the market was just in the dumps.
Gotcha. Well, that was like the turning point, right? I know because I bought a house in 2007, and it was like that
timing.
last little hurrah, and then the next month, it was like, what did we just do?
Well, when I got here, I thought, well, I'll just be a business broker because I love growing companies and all that. And it's such a small little niche of people that you have to have your real estate license because there's no real place for them to put you.
Right.
And so I got my real estate license, and I got introduced to Keller Williams at the time. And I was like, well, I can do that for sure. The business broker, I might work for a year with no paycheck. And at that point, I couldn't do that. And so I jumped in and was like, okay, what do I do now? And so got my license, and I went to Keller Williams, and I met my business partner that we were together for 12 years. And I looked around at the market, and I was like, well, what's selling right now? Well, it's short sales and bank owns, and short sales are long sales, and they're horrible. So I didn't want to do those. And so I started networking with bank clients and going to, I joined a networking group, and we would travel to their corporate offices and take them to baseball games and start getting bank-owned assignments. And we sold over 900 bank-owned properties during the downturn.
Wow.
uh, well over 1,000 homes in town. One year we sold 199 bank-owned properties in 1 year. It was so much work.
You had to have systems in place
Yeah,
to.
we did. Yeah, we had two great admin because we had to turn on utilities on all these things and turn them all off and pay all the bills and get reimbursed. I mean, it looked like you were making money, but we were selling $60,000 HUD homes in Cuna.
Yeah.
Like we made a lot. I spent a lot of money on gas.
For those that don't know, and they maybe not have been in real estate back in that day, explain what a HUD home is.
So if you had an FHA mortgage and you put 3.5% down on your house and it was a Wells Fargo or something, and you got an FHA backed loan, when the home went into default, if you stopped paying or couldn't make your payment, Wells Fargo or Bank of America would say, here, HUD, like this buyer defaulted, take the house, pay me my insurance money. And so then HUD would get these assets and they'd have to sell them and dispose of them. And so there was multiple ways for them to do that.
Wow. And you got in, so you did these hundreds and hundreds of transactions, but did you really basically you had one or two main clients?
A couple dozen bank clients that would give you, but I like looking for anything. I like finding a client that can give you multiple points of business throughout the year.
Right.
It's a great question to ask in your own business. Like, who could give me a bunch of business? And then you just find those particular clients and your life's way easier.
Amen.
You know?
I know when I got started as an agent, I mainly worked with investors and those repeat clients. There's beauty in that.
They might buy a dozen properties from you.
Right. Yeah, man, that was such an interesting situation. Can you tell me, was there a couple houses that stand out? Did you have to clear junk out of houses?
Oh, yeah. We had mice and dead things and all kinds of crazy stuff. There was one bank that would give us a $2,000 budget and we could use it for whatever we wanted. And that was really nice because we could fix a broken window or take off a broken front door shutter or paint the front door if it was all peely, or we had a little bit of freedom. And really all those transactions, what it really taught me to do was learn how to flip a house.
Right.
Because they would tell you, go look at this house, tell me this is vacant or occupied, and then what's it going to take to get it cleaned up, and what's it worth now, and what would it be worth when you clean it up and fix it, and how much does that cost, and get me 2 bids. And so they taught me how to flip a house.
Okay, and I'm excited to jump into that because that's what came next.
Effectively,
right?
Effectively, I've flipped 1,000 bank-owned properties, and the banks taught me. Now, they didn't always listen to my ideas, and they're in front of a computer with 400 properties, so we would just try to make it easy for them. But as my progression progressed, I would be like, well, I would just find an investor. They would buy it from me. I'd make a commission from the bank to list it and from them to buy it. And then I would sometimes show them how to fix it and flip it. And then I would relist it and I'd make another commission. And then once in a blue moon, we'd find the buyer. And so we'd earn 4 transactions on that house. But then I was like, well, why are they making all the money? So then we just found money and we started flipping them ourselves.
Brilliant.
And then it got even deeper because I met a lady at one of my networking events that consulted with HUD, and she helped make the disposition strategy, the selling strategy for HUD on all these bank loans that were coming in. And so I had like insider knowledge. And we started flipping across the country. So we flipped 80 or 90 houses across the country in a year period.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, crazy. I happened to catch an old Bigger Pockets episode that I think the headline was like flipping, 83 houses in 18 months or something. I mean, that's crazy town. That's a lot of volume.
So when you find a vein of gold, you have to like mine the vein of gold until it's gone, right? And so we had this inside opportunity, and I was like, I now see deals all over the country. And I was in this networking group with people I know and trusted in other places. And so I found the money and I had the deal. And so I went to these people on the ground and I said, I'm going to give you a secret list that has all the pricing of all these houses. Go look at them. And then we're going to buy them with the money I found. And then I'm going to coordinate the flip and I'm going to pay all the bills, and you're going to do the flip, and then you're going to get, there's no commission. We're not realtors in this. We're all investors. And if we make money, you're going to get half. If we lose money, you're going to pay half of the loss. And then, I made 25% and the money made 25%. And we made $1 million that year doing that.
And I what I love about that, so much about it, the partnerships and all of that, but like really thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And especially as agents, I think real estate agents, we can just get in that mindset of just do a transaction. We're going to make, our 10 grand or whatever. But there's so many other ways to partner with each other and leverage experience and the innate knowledge of the market that the ordinary public doesn't have. And
think about all the people that we helped when we did that.
Mm-hmm.
All the contractors got paid. The bank got paid. The partners on the other side got paid. The money partner got paid. And the buyer on the other side got a nice quality house.
Mm-hmm.
So we leveled up the neighborhoods. It was a win all the way around.
It sounds like it. So how long were you in that, I guess, I want to say frenzy, but
it's the vein of gold, right? So it was fresh and it was right in front of your nose, but if you didn't know it, you wouldn't see it.
Mm.
And so eventually other people found out about my secret deal. And then instead of buying everyone that we pinpointed, because you would look at 40 houses and there might be one or two that would stand out in that group, but like, oh, these are deals. And we would put offers on them and we would win them both. And then it would be like we would win one of them. And then it was like we'd win one out of every 6 we'd bid on, and then it just stopped working. And so, and then the volume of the inflow of the deal too went away. And so, like I say, find a vein of gold, mine it till it's gone, and then go find another one. I saved up enough money to buy one house a year back then. I'd save up 20 grand and I'd buy a house with my wife. And we'd buy one house a year.
So you didn't just spend it all frivolously.
No.
Yeah, well, tell me about that.
Yeah. When we met, we had a net worth of about 0. And being in the real estate game, like if you guys are in real estate, you are in, you have a huge advantage. Like you're in a place, and I went to real estate schools and new recruits, and I told this to every one of them. Like you're in an industry that creates millionaires, and you're in it all day helping other people do it. You should be doing it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, like you need to figure out how to do it. Because it's like we were buying houses back in the day for 160 grand, and I was looking for the $200 a month cash flow. That's what I wanted. But what happened was they turned into $450,000 houses.
Right.
So
yeah,
not in that long a time, 8-10 years.
It's amazing,
years, yeah.
And people underestimate that. I talk about, I sound like a broken record, but I'm always preaching that even for the person that has no interest in retiring early, the power of having 2 to 3, 4 rental properties that appreciate over time, it's a game changer.
Yeah, and we can tell people too, like all the other tax benefits of owning real estate, the depreciation, all those components. But until you sit down with your accountant and you buy one, and you sit down with your accountant and take them to lunch, and you say, go through this thing line by line with me. Like, oh, look what that just did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you didn't pay an extra $5 grand in tax this year because you had that rental. Like, that's real money.
Absolutely.
And then when you do your net worth statement every year and you track it and you look back 8 years, like, holy moly, look at what's happened here. And like some assets have gone up and some have gone down. And then you sell a few and you do things. And like, we're getting to a stage in our career where there's these phases of your career, right? When you're young, take risks, buy a bunch of properties. Like if everything blows up, learn from it and start again.
Right.
But as we get older and more mature and we get closer to like retirement age, for me personally, I'm selling some rentals right now, and I'm going to have a paid off personal home in the next couple months.
Oh, I love it.
So, and you think, well, that's the dumbest thing you could do financially, but pay off your house and see what happens.
The piece that might transpire over that. That's a question that my husband and I wrestle with all the time. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. And I love that thought. And it's different. There's different levels of peace for everybody. And so that's what's so beautiful. You can have the power to make the choice, even if that money's sitting in an account somewhere and you don't pay it off.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that you could, if everything went to, hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that we've always made sure to do is have at least one paid off rental so that at the very least
You can move into that.
we can move in, and it's one that we lived in at one time. Like
Yeah.
we could move back there and all's, good.
Yeah.
And we have
Yeah.
a roof over our head and nobody's taking it away.
There's usually one spouse of the relationship that values security
Right.
more than the other one.
It's a balance.
And you need both. You need someone to say, hey, come on, let's take a risk. And then someone to say, maybe we shouldn't. And
Yeah.
and then you have to like get some coaching on how to like get both accomplished at the same time with like, maybe there was a time when I wanted 100 rentals and I was going to do it. And then my wife gently reminded me, if you do that, you'll never be home and I won't have a husband. And I don't want that. And like, find a way to make money here.
Gotcha. Okay. You said
yeah.
here, because were you buying out of state?
Yeah. So I owned, a couple years ago, I owned 17 rentals in Indiana.
Okay.
And
why'd you choose, first of all, to invest out of state versus Idaho?
I was buying homes well above the 2% rule.
Wow. And for those that don't know, the 2% rule is
so if you bought a house for $50,000 and you can get $1,000 a month rent, that's the 2% rule. So around here, if you get 1%, you're doing great. So if you buy a house for $200,000, you can get $2,000 a month rent, which is not possible, but
right.
that doesn't happen here anymore unless you're really creative. But that would be. And so what ended up happening was we found this little town in Indiana, and just like that, you find a vein of gold and you mine it until it's gone, right?
Right.
So I found this opportunity, and another person in one of our real estate network groups was buying there, and she told me all the reasons why. I'm like, great, you did all the homework for me. I don't even have to do any of that. I'll just start looking there. So I went there. I contacted a bunch of people, and this is the thing that if you own a real estate company, my whole day was just spent trying to find assets for myself. Like, I didn't have a normal job and tried to do this in the evening.
Right.
I spent a whole year, 18 months building out a rental portfolio. Like, that was my full-time job.
Wow. So you were analyzing deals, making offers.
Yeah.
Did you ever get licensed?
No.
Okay.
I didn't need
you
to.
worked with a agent over there?
Well, what I did was I sold all my triple backup emergency funds. So I had a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of some gold and some stocks and some crypto and some cash and some, and I paid off my house for about a week. And then I got a $300,000 line of credit on my house. And I took that money and I started buying rental properties. And I'd buy 3 or 4, 5, because these houses we were buying for 20 to 50 grand.
Wow.
And so I found wholesalers and I would send out mailers. I did all the things that we were taught to do here.
Right.
And that actually worked there.
Like they're not $500,000 houses.
Well, and a yellow letter that like just gets thrown away here, people thought was a handwritten letter. Because they'd never got one before.
Wow.
And so they're like, hey, you sent me this letter in the mail. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this works. So I bought some houses there, and I started to use some local contractors, and I was just getting beat up. It was the worst quality job. I mean, my kid could do a better job, and he has no idea how to do any of this. It was horrible.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, how do I fix that? And there was way more deals than I could buy. And so one of my best friends is a contractor. And I said, Richard, get in the truck. We're going to Indiana. And so we went there, and then he drove around with me for 4 or 5 days, and we looked at a bunch of houses, and he's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah. So then we came back, and we brought my old business partner and another friend, and then my contractor buddy and his best friend, and me. And we all went there together. We found a guy that, there was a guy in town that owned like 150 doors, and he died. And his wife was like, I don't want these, just sell them all. And so we found a guy that was disposing of all these houses, and they were basically at assessed value. They were just wanting them gone. And so we went, and in that day, I think we probably bought 30 houses. We all went together and we're like, you should buy this one. You should buy this one. I'll take these two. And we just went by the end of the day. And so in that town, we bought 55 houses in that town. And one of mine has a garage. And so on Black Friday, I bought all the tools you need to fix a house and a trailer. And we took it there. And so we would go there and spend 2 or 3 weeks. And we spent like 35 days one time. And we worked every day, 12 hours a day. And we go to Lowe's and get 12 carts full of stuff and put them in the house and go back the next day and do it again. And so we could fully renovate a house in 5 days.
Kevin, what do you think influenced you to like normalize the scale of some of the things that you've done? Because it's not normal, and I love that. Yeah. But it's like most people are thinking, how can I just had talked about buying 2, 3, 4 rentals.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the scale of, hundreds of flips and then buying 17 properties or more. Like, well, how does that happen?
For me, I found it was very effective to have one goal. And so my goal was $10,000 a month in passive income. That was my only goal. And I had it on a whiteboard. And then I had all my rentals next to it. And I kept adding up what I thought was going to be a monthly payment. And if it helped me on that goal, I did it. And if it didn't help me on that goal, I did not do it. And so for 18 months, I just put my head down and I got some of these rentals and I loaded up until I ran out of money. And so I did 4 or 5, fixed them, refinanced them, bought 4 or 5 more, fixed them, refinanced them. And after the third tranche, my $300,000 got stuck in the houses.
Right.
So then, and I didn't have my goal yet. So I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, so I got them fixed. I got that part fixed. I brought all my friends in. And so then I said, well, what if I turned one of them into a short-term rental? I was watching this podcast and there's this guy in the middle of the podcast. He mentions this website and I was like, wait, reverse podcast. And he just mentions this little thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my answer. And so I put my house on there and I got a lead right away that wanted to rent this thing as a furnished rental. I was like, holy mackerel. So I'm like, I don't have it built yet. I talked to it was a nurse and I talked to her and I said, I don't have it built yet, but I'll have it built before you get here. Like, if you give me your word, you'll rent it for 3 months. I'll go put it together. I know what I'm doing. She's like, great. Sounds great. So I flew there with my sister, furnished the house in a week. And the nurse came and rented the house. And I did it again and again and again and again. And now I have 8 of those furnished rentals.
Wow.
And so that helped get my cash flow up.
So capitalizing the short-term rentals, that's a great strategy. So where did you take it from there?
After that point, I'd had about enough of real estate. And my business partner, COVID hit and we're like, everything blew up. And we're like, what are we going to do? Well, I was homeschooling my kid.
Nice.
And so after that, my business partner wanted to retire and not do it anymore. And he's like, I don't want to find another vein of gold. Like, I'm done. So I'm like, well, I can't do this by myself. I don't want to do it. I like working with a partner and I can't do that by myself. So I looked around the industry and I had friends that are in the trades. And so I said, well, the solar thing looked really interesting to me. I'm like, I'm going to start a solar company. So I got with them. We all shook hands, partnered, started a solar company. And I started the company and I ran the company for a year and they did their normal jobs. And it didn't work. But, I learned a ton and I could design a solar system now for you. And I know how much it costs and how to do it and everything. And so we built 4 systems and, but it just wasn't working. And so, but what this real estate thing did for me was it enabled me the freedom to take a whole year and have a 0 and sell a rental and live my life and not have to go take a job because I needed to feed my family. So sold a rental, had enough money for more than a year and did that. And it just wasn't working. And so I was like, okay, it's not working. I'm going to pivot again. And so at the end of the year, we shut that down. And I looked around again and I was like, well, what should I do for the final remaining years of my 17 years until I don't want to work anymore? And I sent out some resumes and I was like, I don't know, that's not going to work for me. And
we kind of get unemployable when we're
entrepreneurs. I had a resume from 3rd grade. I'm like, this is not good. Like, so I had someone professionally make one for me and all the things I kind of do know how to do. And still I was like, I'm going to work at a company for about 1 day and then I'm going to start telling them what to do and then they're going to fire me. I'm like, that's not going to work. So I started looking at the insurance industry and I was like, this is really interesting. I sent a resume to an insurance company and they called me back right away. I was like, well, that's interesting. That hasn't happened before. And so I started looking into it more and I interviewed all the big companies and a bunch of online companies, and every one of them wanted to hire me. And I was like, that's interesting. So the company I went to work for, or with, I should say, they did a personality profile test to see if you'd be a good insurance agent. And the guy said, in the 35 years I've been doing this, I've only seen 2 people score this high.
Wow.
So it basically means like I'd be a good insurance agent, right? I have the skill set to do that. And I'm really enjoying it.
I can tell. I see you out and about and have a heart for education.
Yeah.
Which is huge because people need to be educated.
Hey friends, if you're busy like me, you're always on the lookout for trusted professionals that can help you with your business, home, and investment needs. Whether it's a trusted lender, real estate professional, or a vendor that might be able to come in and work on your home or your investment property, there's always a need out there. And we want you to have great resources at the ready. So Boise Reen has developed an exclusive vendor directory chock full of businesses that are ready to help our community. Head on over to boisereen.com, grab your free copy today, and don't forget, let them know that Boise Reen sent you.
So I want to get into a couple of things that I think could really benefit investors, but I love that you have the perspective with all that depth of real estate investing experience. So it seems like you are just such a great resource for real estate investors for all of their insurance needs. And I wanted to tap into specifically like the buy and hold investors out there.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what do you think it's important for them to look at and when they're identifying what kind of, is it landlord insurance?
Yeah,
they need?
Rental insurance for your rental property.
Right.
So the risks you have when you own a rental property is somebody slips and falls and gets hurt, or heaven forbid a carbon monoxide fails and the person dies in the house. Like that could be like probably the worst thing, right?
Yes.
The most likely thing to happen is the house burns down. And so those are the things that these policies protect you against.
So if someone, I'll use myself as an example. I had a house, a primary home we lived in for several years, moved out of it, made it a rental. I changed the type of insurance I have. Everyone needs to do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have an owner-occupant status on your house because it's yours.
Right.
And when you change it to a rental, some of the coverages change a little bit, and it's more appropriate for a rental than your personal home. So your personal home has other things that are important to you, but for that, you're mostly protecting the asset and the liability in case someone gets hurt there.
Okay. And then do you recommend that they have their tenants get rental insurance?
Yeah. Your policy won't cover their contents. And so for $150 a year, the tenant can get a policy that protects them if someone gets hurt under their care, and also, if the house burns down and all their contents are gone, the insurance company will buy them new ones.
Okay.
So for $150 a year, that's a cheap thing to do.
We do. We require that in our leases.
Yeah.
We still manage our rental properties, and I know that I've actually had it come into play a couple of times. So that's great. How often should someone assess all their policies?
I meet with everyone at least once a year. Well, once a year, because things happen. You sell a car, you forget to tell me, and you're paying for a thing you don't need, or you're thinking about buying a purchase or something, or we just want to look at the coverages. And what's happened lately with this real estate around here is the values have gone way up.
Right.
And so we want to make sure you have the right replacement cost coverage, because if you're insuring your home for $200,000 and it really costs $400 to rebuild it and it burns down, you're going to get a 1-bedroom house instead of a 3-bedroom house.
That's definitely something that we all need to be looking at right now. What do you think is most important for people to know when they're shopping providers and shopping rates? Because I know that a lot of times it's just kind of like with lender.
Yeah.
There's a difference, and it's not just about the rate, right?
Yeah. And when I was sold all this real estate, I didn't have any clue about any of this stuff. And
Me neither.
I just did it and okay, whatever one's cheaper, do it. But that's not really you only need insurance when you need it, right? And you want to make sure that if you have a claim, the company can actually pay it. The reason I went to them, a couple of reasons, but one of them is that they pay their bills, they pay their claims. And I don't want to insure one of my friends and then they have an accident and say, oh, sorry, the insurance company doesn't cover it anymore. Like, I've had these weird things we had a commercial building back in Ohio, and we had a big, huge, massive building, and one of the concrete walls on the whole side of the building was cracked on the bottom, and the wind blew, the whole wall would move, and it was about to fall over, and you could hear it cracking and crumbling, and like if the wall fell down, the whole building comes down. And so I went to our insurance company and said, like, this wall needs to be replaced so the whole building doesn't come down. And they basically said, a wall in the state of collapse is not considered in the state of collapse, and we're not paying you. I'm like, so you just want me to wait till the whole building falls down? So we replaced the wall, and, you know, I'm sure legally that was their right to say that, but the right thing to do would have been to split the cost with me or something, but they didn't. So, and that was my only experience like years ago with this kind of thing, you know.
Well, I know from experience, we had a tragic event. We had a suicide in a house.
Ugh.
And to deal with both our landlord policy and the renter's insurance that was in play, there were surviving members in the home, you know, that they worked together really quickly and got that resolved, because the last thing that family needed was to wait on things being rectified in the house.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that we just want to make it as simple as possible. And whether it's something as tragic as that, or whether it's a flood, the tenants, we owe it to the tenants to make it right as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And if we don't have, you know, not everybody has, everyone should have emergency funds laying around, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
You know, and to be able to make sure that that's taken care of.
Yeah.
I'm curious with rentals, we have a lot of listeners that are both have long-term rentals and short-term rentals. Do you offer insurance for short-term also? And how does that policy differ?
It'll be a little bit more expensive just because there's more tenants in and out. But I kind of like those rentals better because my cleaners are in there all the time. My maintenance guy goes in every 3 months and changes the filter and like checks under the sinks. The long-term rentals are not getting handled like that as much. And so like when the tenant moves out, like it's either great or it's not great.
Right.
You know? So I like the short-term because of the fact I can maintain the house better.
Yeah.
You know, and then another piece that if we can shift gears a tiny bit, I like the listeners that are listening to this, you know, we've had real estate careers, but it's not the only thing that I've done in my financial journey to, you know, we all have to figure out how to retire. And during this time, you know, I had a simple IRA at my real estate company, and I paid myself a paycheck, and I invested in the stock market. And you would be amazed at how much money is in that thing by just putting away a little bit every paycheck into the thing and then letting time go by. I think we're so focused on this real estate piece because it has the potential to generate massive net worth. That's what it really does, or has done for me. But what if we get another 08 again, or another 6 or whatever, you know, another crash, and the whole thing implodes, and that you got all your eggs in that basket, and you're just about to retire. So I have a bunch of assets in real estate and a bunch of stuff in the stock market that's well diversified, and then you know, now I have this new insurance business that's creating wealth for me.
Right.
And so, and if I was younger and I have the tools I had now, I'd also have a whole life policy that was written a very specific way. And so that's a really important piece, that if you guys have these legs or you want to talk about these, you can reach out to me and I'll kind of explain them to you. But if you're young, I wrote a little thing on my Facebook post, like if you're young, first thing you should do is buy a duplex, rent the other side out, get a couple of roommates, figure out how to live for free. Yeah. And then you should put $250 into a whole life policy and $250 into a simple IRA every month. And then when you get to the point where you can buy another rental property, you should go buy another duplex or triplex and go move into it and rent out the other piece you have. And if you do that every couple years, you have 3 or 4 of those, and it could be that simple. And then eventually, like, go buy your own, get a family and go buy your own normal house, and you have 3 or 4 rentals, and soon enough, those things will be paid for.
Totally.
Or go buy 8 and then go buy your normal home. And at some point in the future, if they appreciate, you can sell 2 or 3 and have 3 or 4 paid off. And that's a nice like segue into like, what should your retirement look like? As I get closer to retirement, I want no debt personally. And then I'm going to structure my real estate so that it has little or no debt as well. And then I'll have, these other legs as well, so that if one of them blows up, everything will still be fine.
So powerful. I so resonate with what you're talking about, agreeing about. And I think we don't talk about that why enough, and what to do with the success if you get equity and reach and get build wealth through what you're talking about. I agree. Having a diversified portfolio is huge. And it's what you do with those profits and that equity. Because a lot of people, I see it with real estate agents. I see it with fix and flippers. Definitely see it with wholesalers.
Yeah.
And they're self-employed. They're not building long-term wealth. They're taking those proceeds. They're paying their rent with them. Maybe they don't even own. They're living off of them. But at the end of the day, 10, 20 years later, they don't have that increased net worth.
Yeah.
And it's the main point, and part of what I'm so passionate about with the Boise Real Estate Investor Network is helping people maintain and grow that net worth and that equity so that they have those options down the road.
Yeah. I mean, that, frankly, for me, I mean, I know I might have said this, but I couldn't have taken a year and worked for
Right.
zero money and start a whole company for a year and put a whole year of my life into something that got a zero.
That's
I would have
huge.
had to take a job. And
I don't
go
know.
work for the man.
95% of people, if they do that, a business that fails, they're
It would
they're
bankrupt them.
bankrupt.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I just sold one rental and I was fine.
And it's so
So
sad. It's preventable.
Yeah. And it's like early on, if you listen to these things and you take a risk and buy the first duplex and like start this process, you'll not be disappointed in the process. And slowly, but all of a sudden you're an overnight success because, like it just, time goes on. 20 years will go by and you'll be like, oh, I wish I would have done that. And now
Yeah.
it's not going to do what it would have done.
Right. The power.
I started saving money for my kids' college when they were born. And I would tell the grandparents, buy him a Matchbox car and put $200 in his college fund, please.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. He doesn't know. He'll play with the Matchbox car. It'll be great.
It's so
And
true.
you would be amazed at how much money is in those accounts. My son's 14 and there's tens of thousands of dollars in his college fund. Don't tell him, but
Yeah.
eventually he'll know that. But it's like, and the
powerful.
power of that. I mean, my
Right.
mom gave both of my kids a small amount of money that they don't know about. And if they don't touch it, when they're retired, there'll be $1 million in my daughter's fund.
Yeah.
It's not very much money. It's just the power of time and compound
Right.
interest. It's so powerful.
So I'll speak, if you're listening to this and you're under 30, I think I speak for Kevin. I know both of us are just happy to sit down with you and talk about the things that
Yeah.
we wish we would have done even earlier than we did. I mean, I'm grateful that I was about 30 when we really started getting serious about actually later than that. My husband was
know.
serious about it
I know,
at
it doesn't
30.
take
I was
that
scared
long.
of real estate investing at 30. But it does not take that long. But if you're of that mindset when you're in your 20s, you are gold if you take action,
Yeah, you have to take action.
right?
And you'll be a little bit afraid. You'll be a little bit scared, and that'll be okay,
Totally.
And if not, move back in with your parents. Start again.
Well, okay.
You
So,
know?
Kevin, since you're just like delved into obviously investing, but insurance right now, you mentioned whole life insurance. That's something that I've got some questions about.
Yeah.
Tell me how, in your opinion, how that plays into that overall portfolio or how you've seen it work.
Sure. So there's 3 types of life insurance that you can get. Term policy, which is like $500,000 for 10, 20, 30 years. And at the end of the time, it's gone. And so I was sold a 20-year term policy 15 years ago. And in 5 years, that is vanished. And I wish it would go on for a little bit longer. My kids aren't all the way out of the house yet. I didn't really get enough good advice about that. And that's when you're young and you have kids, you have dependents that are depending on you and a family that's depending on you.
Right.
And if you don't come home tomorrow, how are they going to survive? It's the cheapest thing you could possibly ever do and one of the most impactful things I could ever do for your family. So talk to me about that. On the next step, you have this IUL, Index Universal Life. It's this new shiny object. It's only been around a while, and it's a horrible idea. So let's leave it at
Okay.
that. And then you've got this whole life policy that's been around for 100 years. You're putting your money in the general fund of the insurance company our company will turn 100 next year. Insurance companies don't typically fail. So it's probably one of the most safest things you can probably do. It's the most boring thing you can probably do. But it should be your anchor in your life. So the way I structure these things, there's a certain way you build this policy to get the most juice out of it. All insurance policies have a cost with them. So we buy a $25,000 whole life policy, the cheapest thing you can get. All the costs are inside of that. So low cost because it's only 25 grand. And then we'll buy a term policy based on your need for your family and like for how long you need it for. If you buy a mortgage on your primary residence, for God's sake, spend the $40 a month and protect that mortgage so that your spouse doesn't come home and have to
Is
move
that
out.
part of the whole life insurance
We're going
policy?
to put it inside of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to bundle that term inside of it, whatever you think you need, and we'll come up with a number together and I'll help you figure that out. So that's like for the inside the term of like you're young, your kids are in the house, all these kind of things. Once you have enough assets, you don't need life insurance for that component anymore because you're self-insured.
Right.
So we only need to spend that money when we need it, right? So we put that inside of the whole life policy. And then we do this thing, supercharger. It's called the level paid up additions rider, and you'll never remember that term, and it's like, who cares? At least PUAR. But what it does is it buys more insurance on top of the base policy. But what it really does is it creates a cash value component of the life insurance policy. That's where the magic happens. Once this thing grows, it starts to grow upon itself, just like any other investment. And the dividends inside of it supercharge the policy. There's a guy in Boise that I did an analysis for last week. If he puts in $700 a month for 10 years, and then he's young, he's making money. It's like, this is one component. I know it's a little bit expensive, but you only got to do it for 10 years. And then you put in like $30 a month until you're 65. In his 80s and 90s, he'll have $1 million in that bank, in that cash value account. It's your money. You can borrow it from yourself. If you get terminally ill, you can use up to $500,000 of that policy while you're alive to buy a house for your family, go on an epic vacation, do the things that you want to do. This whole life policy checks off so many boxes in our financial plan. I can customize it any way we want, but we start with that small $25,000 policy with a term that you need, and then the supercharger. And then we put the supercharger at whatever you can comfortably afford for the next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. And then we put nothing in. And at 65, you put nothing in ever again. And there's like $1 million in that thing when he goes to retire.
Wow.
It's not that much money if you do it when you're young.
Right.
Now, if you're 60 and you have to start this, it's going to look a little different.
But I know there's ways that people can maximize returns or jumpstart what they have.
Yeah.
I think.
And that's not like, but think about, I'm telling you, like, there's a huge pile of money at the end of this, and there is, but that's not why we're doing it. It's the other pieces as well, because that should be like your anchor, your boringness, right? Then you've got some money in the stock market that if it goes well, you'll have millions of dollars in that thing when you're dead that you can pass on. And then your real estate, like, I was focused on cash flow. I wanted the $200 a month, but what I didn't realize is that my net worth would go up by $1 million because of time. Like, I bought 30-year fixed rate mortgages, boring, and I bought a house, and all of a sudden, 10 years later, like it's worth, $400,000 more than I paid for it. Like, so it's this time factor. Now, we may hit a wall in the market and things may go down. Like, we've gone up here probably too fast.
Yeah.
For the average 4% growth. Will it continue? Who knows? I thought things were capping 5 years ago and sold a couple of rentals.
I did too.
Look how smart I am.
did too. And we're real estate. We're real estate.
Yeah.
But you just never know. So I love the diversified approach.
You have to have it. You can't just spend your money and energy on your most valuable asset, which is your income, right? Because that's what we need to protect, especially when you're young.
Right.
If you lose the ability to make money and you live, you're not a burden to your family. Like, we have tools to protect against that too. So if I work with somebody we're going to get a disability policy. I've had these for years. I pay them once a year, and it's an expensive bill. But I know that if I become disabled tomorrow, I fall and I crack my head and I can't even spell my own name, I'm not going to lose my house.
Right.
And if I die, my family is going to be well taken care of. So
I love it, Kevin.
it's even worse if you're alive because you're now a burden to your family. Like, don't let that happen to you.
I love your passion on that. And I just urge everyone, whether they talk to you, Kevin, or they talk, and in conjunction talk to an attorney, a CPA, to spend a little time thinking through these things. It's like that whole ounce of prevention, right? But especially you and I both work with so many entrepreneurs and small business owners that are essentially self-employed, and they're out there painting houses, for example, and their whole livelihood depends not only on obviously making income, but their physical
They're
aptitude.
in harm's way all day long.
Yeah.
They're cutting with a saw right by their thumb or their hand, like all day long. And it's like, especially the trades, that's kind of the path that I've decided to take, is to specialize in helping the trades, because they all need this stuff and they don't know it. And some of them are getting successful and they have extra money, and we can help. Let's help them get a couple rentals. Let's make sure they have that disability policy. So if they are completely messed up, I mean, I have a guy that I know that had a stroke. I mean, he had to learn how to swallow again. He'll never work a day in his life, and he did not have one of these. And like, let's not let that happen to you guys. Like, let's put these little things in place. It doesn't take much time, and then just let time go by.
Right. And for listeners out there, this is exactly an example of the kind of professionals that you're going to come across in Boise Rene, that we talk about these issues, that it's more than just the hustle, standing in front of a Lamborghini because you did $1 million in wholesaling or fix and flips. It's not about that. It's about creating the life that you want for your family, building long-term wealth, and not losing it. We're all going to have failures here and there, but if you can learn from our mistakes and the others that we've witnessed that have had mistakes and avoid those, that's our goal.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing all of this today.
Yeah, I mean, personally, my dad died when he was 42.
Oh my gosh.
And he didn't have life insurance. The only life insurance he had was when he had a business loan on his business. And the banker made him take a life insurance policy out to protect the mortgage, the loan he took it out in the business. So when he died, my mom inherited a business with no debt. And that business is still around today.
Wow.
And so even just that little piece, he wouldn't have done it if they wouldn't have made him. But good thing he did.
Right. Well, you're fully involved with insurance now. You have your buy and hold rental properties. You're building out your wealth portfolio. But personally, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? You put goals on a wall before, on a whiteboard. I heard you say that.
Yeah.
Well, what's your future?
So once you take a risk and you acquire assets and you build up these 3 legs of your financial plan with your income generator, which is you and your business, and you're putting it in these 3 buckets, right? Once you have that set, now I'm starting to look at, in 17 years, I'm going to retire. And so I've asked several, we have financial analysts at Country too. I said, put this all in your magical widget thing and tell me what happens, And so I'm starting to look at, like, what do I want my life to look like when I retire? What do I want to do?
Right.
And I could probably retire now. I don't want to. I want to help more people. But at that point, what will probably end up happening is it will follow our kids around wherever they go. But, I want to buy an Airstream and travel the country and go see. There's so much cool things. If you've never been to Cave City, Kentucky, and went underground.
Haven't been there.
And been inside of a cave that's like this, like 4 houses could fit inside of it. Like, you go through this little windy thing called Fat Man's Misery, and you like wind through this crazy thing, and like it's completely dark down there. Like, there's so many cool things in the country that we should go look at and see.
I love it.
But that's kind of like you build these assets, and then you take all these risks, and then you look at all of it and you let it grow, and you kind of massage it and change it a little bit. For me right now, I'm going to sell a few more rentals and get my personal home paid off so that I have no personal debt except for like some mortgages, because it stabilizes your personal portfolio and your life, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But if I have a paid off house, I can make it. and I have a disability policy and a life policy and like these other things that are important, because if my income stops, my family still probably can't make it just yet. They'd figure it out, but they don't have to worry about that.
Oh, I love it. And there's that piece is just huge. Thanks.
We're gonna rebalance this a little bit, and then I'm just gonna grow my insurance business to a point where my first goal is I insure 100 small businesses, and make sure that all those businesses have the opportunity to have these options that I have.
I love it. I love that spirit of when you're a business owner and you're focused on how you're going to help other people. I mean, that's the key to success. So thank you for sharing so much. I love the thread of all of the different phases of the investing experience you've been through, and then being able to capitalize that in what you're doing today and helping others. We're so happy to have you part of the Boise Rene community and the Treasure Valley in general. As we wrap up, I know that people can find you. You've been coming to every Boise Rene event. We've got one coming up. By the time you're listening to this, we have an event every single month. So check boiserene.com for our next event.
Yep.
And depending on when you're listening to this, because we are planned to be here and impacting lives for a very long time. And Kevin, besides that, what's the best one way for people to get a hold of you?
You can look me up on Facebook or go to search on Google Kevin Carroll Country Financial and reach out to me. I'd love to sit down and have coffee with you and really just talk about these different components and help you plan a strategy. Because I didn't know what I didn't know when I was 20. And sometimes that's good, because you just don't know, like,
Right.
What's the worst that could happen? I have no idea. Let's go buy 25 properties. Great. Let's do it. Let's flip 100 houses across the country. It'll be fantastic.
Makes
Let's
a
do
good
it.
story.
Yeah. And so, it builds character, but let me teach you like some of the things that went right and some of the things that didn't go right. Like for me, like, don't buy a mobile home in a park unless you own the park. Learn that the hard way, So let me coach you on some of these things and like give you these opportunities and show you some of these pathways I did, and happy to help.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again for being here, and we'll sign off here at the Idaho Real Estate Investor Show. We'll catch you on the next episode. Go and grow.
Well, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for joining me here at the Idaho Real Estate Investor Show. I hope you're leaving with new insights and inspiration to help you truly grow wealth through real estate. If you enjoyed the show, do me a favor. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with those that can benefit from it. Go and grow, and I'll catch you on the next episode.